Hi guys, welcome along to another video. Let me just start this one by saying firstly sorry, it's been a while since I posted. Work gets in the way at this time of year, and to be fair it's only going to get worse until Christmas, so this will probably be the last post of this year really. I'll be able to spend some time in January when I've got a bit of time off producing some more content. I've got loads of stuff recorded from earlier in the year, just haven't had time to do the edits and get it online, so it will happen. But it's just a bit hectic at this time of year. I did just want to sneak this one out very quickly in response to a mate of mine, Tim in Australia. He's been having some issues landing the 737 into Queenstown in south of New Zealand. So I want to start this little section of the video firstly by saying, Tim, you have picked one of the most challenging RNAV approaches in the world. It's extremely mountainous terrain. It's not an ILS, it's an RNAV approach. It's not a straight in approach, it's a curved approach. It's got loads of challenging aspects to it. So with that in mind, let's go and fly it. So we're in the cruise at the moment, flight level 240 on the way down from Christchurch. And I'll just show you what we've got for weather so far. I've got active sky, which I believe is coming to X-Plane as well fairly soon. So that should be quite exciting for the X-Plane users that have been waiting for a decent weather injection tool. So we've got Queenstown dialed in here. Temperature of 8 degrees, surface wind 074 at 9 knots, the pressure 1009, and most importantly the airport elevation 1171 feet. And if we look down here, it tells you the runway in use currently based on real world ops and the current weather conditions. Runway 05, which I think is the one that Tim has been having the most trouble with. So we've planned for, based on our sim brief flight plan, which I'll just show you here. There we go, summary bit. The routing out of Christchurch from runway 02 on the Ubdan 3 Papa with a Guput transition, and then the Yankee 266 airway all the way down. We're just a beam Timaru at the moment, to a waypoint called LRAV, and that transitions us onto the arrival. Now, one thing I will note is that whilst Navigraph, which I normally use for charts, has the LRAV, what are we on? It's LRAV 2 Alpha arrival for 05. Brings us in north of Beam the Field down to the initial approach fix of Ibabu. It does not have the correct RNAV approach for 05. You can find that online if you literally Google the ICAO code of an airport followed by charts. You'll get normally the fairly accurate national charts for that airfield. So I've just literally Googled NZQN November Zulu Quebec November charts, and it's brought me to the AIP New Zealand, and it gives you a whole host of charts there which pop up as a PDF. So we've got the RNAV approach, which is sideways, which is why I just loaded it up into Navigraph so you can see it better, and then we've got the RNAV Yankee for 05, which is the plate we actually want to fly. Transitioning from the star via Ibabu, the initial approach fix, tracking Quebec November 577 at 10,000 feet or above, following the arc with height restrictions all the way down to Quebec November 562 at 5,500 or above, and then the 038 radial inbound to, let's zoom in there a little bit, Amubo, which is the final approach fix, and then this little dog leg around these two spot heights here into 05, which has an inbound course or heading of 054, so a 18-degree right turn round these hilly points right on short finals. So that's obviously quite a consideration, so that's quite a challenging approach. We've got it programmed into the FMC. I'll just talk you through quickly how the FMC is set up. So we know, because we've got a very, very short runway, it's like a 5,500 foot runway here at Queenstown, we'll be taking the slowest approach VREF speed we can. So in the approach reference, the init ref page, once you're airborne, that becomes the approach ref. We're taking flaps 40, 137 knots, 136 knots in fact. And the way we've done that is just to confirm that our we've got total 3.8 tonnes of fuel on board at the moment. We have the progress page. We've got 3.8 tonnes, we expect to have 3.3 tonnes on landing. So our landing weight will be 3, that's 5, plus half a tonne. So half a tonne off of 61.2 tonnes will be 60.7 tonnes. So 60.7 tonnes goes in there, and that'll just change these VREF speeds accordingly, so that our landing weight will be 60.7 tonnes, and then we just copy that from that line into the flap speed box, and that is our VREF speed. And you'll see on the PFD that it gives you your ref speed just there. Flaps 40, 136. So then in the descent page, we've gone to descent forecast. From our flight plan, we've just popped the forecast winds in for the descent, and I'll just show you how that looks on the flight plan if you've not seen some of my earlier videos. So on SimBrief, in the OFP, scroll down past the flight log plus and nav data for each waypoint, and you get wind information, and you're looking at this box here. We just entered winds for flight levels 200, 150 and 100, or flight level 200, 15,000 and 10,000 feet, because the transition level here in Queenstown is flight level 150. So below flight level 150 we're on local QNH, and we're on altitudes, not flight levels. So we've entered that information exactly as it is there, 298//40 into the line for flight level 200, and so on, completing the wind information. We've entered the transition level, which will be whatever your if it's ZEBO or whether it's PMDG, whatever the default is will be in there, which mine is, because I fly a lot in Europe, is when the UK is 6,000, flight level 6060. So that defaults to 060, so you just need to change that. That'll just make sure the FMC is set up accordingly. So that is all in, and the last thing we've done is to just then grab the charts, go into the legs page, and just step through making sure all the legs are as you'd expect to see them on the charts. Most importantly, all the height and speed restrictions on the right hand side are correct, which they are according to the charts. And then from the legs page, you'll see runway 05 is our landing runway. We're just grabbing runway 05 by the line select key, brings it into the scratch pad, and we go to the fix page, and in a clean fix page, in a blank fix page, enter the fix as runway 05. Obviously it's in the scratch pad, so you just line select it into there, and then by typing in /10 and /5, it's given us range rings around the landing runway. Now let me just show you what that looks like on the ND. There we go. That is the airport. They're just there, and amongst all those, that's all. In fact, if I turn off data very quickly, it should. No, it's got rid of some of it. So that is path going north of beam and tracking back round to the inbound, and then these two dotted rings in green around here are the 5 DME and the 10 DME range rings, and they're just useful reference points that we need to configure the aircraft. So at 10 DME we're going to configure flaps 5 and bring the speed back, and at 5 DME we're going to configure flaps 15 gear down, matching the speed, and once the gear's down we're going to continue to slow the aircraft to VREF. So those range rings are just really useful tools to as a visual reference, so you can configure the aircraft in good time. We are, let's just have a quick look at the progress. We're 8 miles from top of descent, so we can imagine we've been cleared, re-cleared down to say flight level be 12,000 feet. Transition level here is 15,000 feet. Been cleared down to 12,000 feet, and that would be descend, maintain 12,000 feet on the QNH 1009, which it still is in Queenstown at the moment, or whatever the local QNH is for the area. So we can dial in 12,000, which we have done, and then if we use the altimeter calibration knob on the EFIS control panel there, you'll see down on the PFD you've got standard, because we're still in standard at the moment, but underneath there's some white text has come up there. That's one. That should be correct there. It's very hard to see because of the zoom level on this monitor. If we go in here, so we've got 1009 set. We just captured top of descent and we started to pitch over there. 1009 is always set on standby, like if similar to a radio, you've got your setting and your standby setting. So it's in standby. We've been cleared down to an altitude rather than a flight level, so we'll hit the standard transfer button and you'll see those two swap over, and that will become 1009. Slight pitch up, because obviously that changes the perceived altitude of the aircraft, and we are starting down our descent. So we're just going to monitor the progress, make sure we comply with the speed restrictions on the way down, the first one being 250 below 10,000 feet, and we will attempt to land the aircraft. Now the important thing, one of the important things to remember with any approach, particularly with an RNAV approach, is the minima. And we'll just grab the chart and have a quick look at that. That is definitely Navigraph, and we want a browser. There we go. So this is our cross-section, our vertical profile. 3,100 at the final approach fix, and then down on 3.2 degree virtual glide slope to the final fix, which is Quebec November 545, which is in between those two high points. As you'll see here on the, this is the inset section of that area there. So we come down from Amubo on 038 inbound to Quebec November 555, starting an arc 550, 545. So those two arc sections there are probably manually flown most of the time. You can enter it in the FMC and program it up so that it'll fly it for you, but we may as well disconnect from the final approach fix and fly that manually. But what we need to just confirm is the minima. So it's a Cat C aircraft, and we can fly, and I'll show you what this means in a second, we can fly an RMP of 0.15 in the vertical profile. So we can fly to a minima of 1438. And bearing in mind the airfield elevation is 1171, that's only a couple of hundred feet above the deck. It's not 1,000 foot or 1,400 foot over the deck height. So we need to put 1438 is the figure we need, and we need to pop that in to the aircraft. So in the EFIS, up on here, we've got the altimeter calibration there, and then we've got the minimas. We're flying on a barometric pressure, not radio altimeter, so our minimas will be via the pressurized system of the aircraft. We said 1438, so we dial that in. You'll see now, as soon as I've moved that knob, another figure has popped up in the PFD. We'll just dial in when the sim unfreezes. There we go. Dial in 1438. And that is our minima. So that is once we're cleared to the RNAV approach, we are clear down to 1438 before we have to either sight the runway or fly a missed approach. So that is a very important figure, and we were going to talk about RMP as well. So let's go very quickly to the FMC. We're just passing 143 for 12. So we'll imagine we've been cleared down to 8,000 now. So if we go into the legs page first of all, you'll see at the bottom of the legs page the dotted line there, the dashed line, and we've got the RMP and the actual. The required navigational performance, and then the actual, what is being flown by the aircraft. The tolerances, so that's the cross-track tolerances, so how far left and right of track the FMC is flying the aircraft, that's the actual. So we're within 0.05 of a nautical mile left and right of track. The required for most navigational sections is like 2 miles or 1 mile, but for an RMP, for an RNAV approach, the RMP required navigational performance is no more than 0.3 nautical mile constraints off track. So we've popped in 0.3 into here just to confirm that, and if during the approach the pilot monitoring will be watching these figures, and if that figure exceeded that figure, then that's an immediate abort the approach and go around. So that's the tolerances we need to be able to fly the aircraft within. There is also, and I can't remember for the life of me where the RMP for the vertical profile is. It won't be in either of these two because we've passed those stages. I will double check on this, maybe leave something in the comments. There should be, I can't remember if that RMP figure matches up with the vertical profile figure as well, if there is a way to monitor them both separately, but we'll have a look. The FMC is screaming at me drag required at the moment, so let's have a quick look at what's going on. Yeah, so we've got a commanded speed now of 220 knots to be within constraints on the approach, and we're just passing north abeam the field, which is down there. There's Queenstown, there's the field. So this is Lake Wakatipo here, so we're tracking out on the western side and then turning around inbound, descending down through the mountains here. So we're just going to match the heading and look at the speed, what the speed's doing. Speed's coming back, and we've hit basically a altitude constraint, roughly speaking. We've got let's have a quick look at the FMC. Oh no, we're just on profile, so it's just managed to pitch the aircraft up a little bit to keep us on profile. It's got the speed back under control there. So all the while just watching the speed come down, making sure the aircraft's on profile, which we are. If we have a quick look here, you'll see what the RMP and the AMP are for the vertical profile, given in this box here, which is obviously our vertical profile guide. So we're flying a required navigational performance of 400 foot above or below profile, and we're currently on an actual navigational performance of 105 foot. So we're well within tolerances there. So I think actually, I'm just going back to the RMP quickly off the chart, I think that figure would then refer to the RMP in the legs page. So we'll just update that to 0.15, as that is what is required by the charts in order to fly to those minima. It's not going to give us 0.15. Okay, we'll stay at 0.3 then. I'm pretty sure I'm basing my knowledge on Flight Deck to Sims videos. I think that's fairly accurate. I could be slightly wrong, but it's certainly much tighter RMP, required navigational performance, than standard en route airways and so on. So we are continuing down the descent. So we've got a few height restrictions here. Let's have a quick look at those actually. So we've got at or above 10 at Quebec November 5 577, which is our next waypoint. And then the next restriction is we've got 220, 205 as we come around the corner, and then at 573 we've got an actual speed restriction of 170 knots. So we're going to start to configure the aircraft well ahead of time to make sure we get the aircraft down and under control speed wise, because the last thing we want to be doing is arriving hot and high onto a particularly challenging RNAV approach. So it's always about just staying above the aircraft and ahead of the aircraft, making sure you know what's about to happen and what you need to do. Got a bit of challenging weather coming in as well, which is always fun. So we've passed 10, so we'll pop some landing lights. We're approaching 10, so we'll pop some landing lights and the runway turn-off lights on. And also the seatbelt signs. Confirm we've got the land altitude set and the pressurization is checked, and that is good for now. So passing 10, we've got seatbelt signs, we've got lights, and we've got local QNH set. I'm going to imagine now we've been cleared, let's say down to 5,000. And we're just watching. So the aircraft has now bugged the up speed, which is the flap up speed, or minimum speed before flat 1 can be selected, or rather before flat 1 is required. So just looking, it's always good to monitor the charts because we need to know. So our first, just looking at the arc here, it doesn't actually say on there, so let's have a quick look at the FMC. Just looking for our first speed restriction is 170 at Quebec November 573, so that is coming up fairly soon. So we're actually going to go to flaps 1, we'll go flaps 2, and the aircraft, you can see, is following, it's reducing the speed in order to maintain that speed restriction as entered into the FMC. So we're going to go flaps 5 now, and we'll open the speed window and set 170. In fact, we'll leave it at 168. So 168 is our flap 5 speed. So we'll keep that, that's fine. That's close enough to 170 knots, which is the restriction. So we're flying this arc now, designed to take us around these high points in the terrain. And this is obviously where you can see how the tighter tolerances in the required navigational performance come into play, because you wouldn't want to be more than you know, half a mile, even less than that, off track in these hilly conditions, especially with a bit of cloud in the area, because you're going to suddenly find yourself popping out of cloud facing a mountainside. Just matching the heading as we come around the corner, flying straight into a nice bit of cloud. So the current very latest weather is showers, which we can confirm is correct. Temperature's 8, the wind is still from the west-northwest, put my teeth in, east-northeast. 074 at 9 knots, and the visibility 10k with showers and light rain. So it will be a challenging approach, so you can see how this has set us up nicely between these two bits of high ground on the left and right here. Flying straight into the soup, so we've got to trust the aircraft and the RNAV path is correct. Still not quite back at that speed, so I'm just going to use a bit of speed brake to get us slowed down. And we can assume now that we're on the inbound course. We've been cleared to the RNAV approach, so they would say cleared RNAV 05. In fact, that would probably be it. You cleared to the RNAV approach runway 05, and you can then set the in fact we've got it here, set the MDA, minimum descent altitude, 1438, so we'll go for 14. Go for 144. We'll go for 140 rather. So it's 38 foot below the MDA. So we'll be looking at the MDA to make sure we're visual before we get to that stop altitude. Breaking out of the murk, we're coming in over the lake, coming up on the 10 DME arc. So we're configured well ahead of time just to meet those speed restrictions in the approach. So 170 knots, close enough to 170 knots, going up on that. You can hear the engine spooling up, so we'll retract the spoilers. And I'm happy to keep it at flaps 5 and 170 until about 5 DME, which is the next range ring here. We'll go gear down, flap 15, and start to slow the aircraft up. In fact, we may go slightly ahead of that just to give ourselves plenty of time to get the aircraft down. So just monitoring, and as I say, you'll always be monitoring that the RMP is lower figure. Sorry, the AMP, the actual, is a lower figure than the RMP to make sure we're within tolerances of the approach. We're descending through 464 14, and we've got the speed 168. Still not visual, though we can expect to drop out the bottom of this cloud in a very short space of time. We've got Queenstown off slightly to our left in this little cove in the side of the lake here. And we can imagine then we've been cleared to land as well, so we could pop the all forward facing lights on. In fact, they weren't on, they were only extended, that was an error. We've got the pressurization is set, the altimeter is set 10, in fact that's just changed, so we've got the engine start switch continuous and the altimeters are 1010 now, 1010 set, and we are visual. So you can see these two high points we've got left and right here, Queenstown off to the left in this valley here, and the airport off ahead in front of us, and we are 18 degrees we're at 18 degree offset from the runway heading. So we're approaching now the 5 DME, so we're going to get geared down, flap 15, and by setting flap 15 the FMC should match the speed because it's still in a managed mode. There we go, so you can see it's now selected the flap 15 speed, and what we'll do is as soon as we get below about 160 knots we'll go flap 20. Sorry, flap 25. It will slow the aircraft to the flap 25 speed. As soon as we get below that white indicator there, that's our flap 30 limit. So as soon as we get beyond there, a bit gusty, so we can go flaps 30, and finally we're in tolerances flap 40. So we've got flap 40 selected, gear down 3 green, our auto brakes are 3. And we are cleared to land. So the aircraft's still flying that profile for us, so we're just doing a good job, so we're just going to let it continue flying the profile down. And we're stable. We'll arm the spoilers, and the before landing checklist is complete. So you can see that, terrain warning, you can see that heading offset from the runway coming into play there, because we've got to fly that curved approach all the way in, right to the very last. So we're coming up on the MDA as well, on decision height. So we're going to take the autopilot out as it comes around that corner. put us into a bit of a dive there. So just going to get back on the pappies. We're a dot below. Minimums, continue. Two below, so that's well in the red there. That's obviously a little bit lower than we want to be. And then taking over the speed. Bit of a hard one, straight on the full reverse, and we've got auto brakes 3. It's a nice firm landing. It's better to plant it than bounce it. And cancelling the reverse, we've got right down to 25 knots. So we had a bit of deck spare there, so we could have come off the brakes a little bit earlier. But it's always better to get the thing slowed down nicely on the deck, because it is, as I say, quite a short runway here. It's a little bit, being perfectly honest and super critical, it was a little bit sloppy at the end there. That might well have been considered a go around, an unstable approach, but we got it down, so that's all I'm concerned with at the moment, and hopefully didn't spill the champagne. Oh, lovely, active sky is doing something weird with the weather, so we'll do nothing until we've turned the aircraft back around and started the taxi back in. Might have just sown some grass there. That was a little bit tight. There is the option of a full length backtrack if you go down to the far end of the deck here. You've got a slightly larger turning circle at the far end. That's probably designed for beach 1900s and ATRs and stuff like that, that little intersection there. But hey ho. So we are taxiing on the backtrack. The cleanup can start, so the spoilers can retract and the flaps can come in. Auto brake can go to off. The flight directors can go. The weather radar can go, and the terrain can go on the far side. We're still on an active runway, so actually the lights and everything else can stay as they are for now. It's a very short taxi in there, so we will start the APU now. Start switches can go to off, and the probe heats can go off. The master caution there for the probe heats going. And the MCP will be reset to 100, probably 3000 plus 100 to show that clearance hasn't been received for the next sector. And we will exit next left. As we're exiting the active, the landing lights can go, runway turn-off lights can go, because we're coming straight onto an apron, and the transponder can go to Alt-Off. And we're going to pick gate 3 because it is straight ahead. Coming on to stand, the taxi light can go, so we don't blind anybody. Confirm the pitot heat's already gone, so we don't burn any unsuspecting ground crew. About 3 or 4 knots coming on stand. Close the throttles and bring her gently to a stop. Lovely, the parking brake can come straight on and we'll go overhead. Confirm we've got the APU on the bus, so then we've got 2 blues and 1 red, and the engines can go. And then the seatbelt signs, fuel pumps, and we can do the transit shutdown or shutdown as required, so the engine hydraulic pumps can go. APU bleed can come on, so we've got some air, and the isolation valve can open. I'll leave that there because the rest of it is obviously a transit shutdown and so on and so forth, and there's plenty of material online for that. It was a little bit of a rough landing, a little bit of a bumpy landing, but it was down, and it was, in fact, the strobe should have gone when we came off the active as well. it was a little bit of a rough landing, but we're down, we're safe, and we're stopped. Hopefully didn't spill too much champagne. So there we go. Tim, I hope that was a little bit useful for you. It does come pretty thick and fast, as with all procedural stuff, especially the RNAV stuff, and it is a ridiculously challenging approach to fly, especially if you're not that experienced. So yeah, stick at it. We'll try and arrange something, a little flight together online where we can go through it and hopefully give some tips and pointers. Take care everybody, and I probably won't see you until next year now.